Hiya! Welcome to my 39th episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, and in this installment, titled A Million Little References, I react to my friend Jesse's recommendation for my last episode for A Million Little Things. I've got a bunch of anglophilic callbacks in my classic collection, including a Friday night feature on a 4th season episode of Doctor Who that I actually love. How weird is that? I clear out my DVR in my current collection, plus comments on a few of my nerd shows, and in what I've been watching, I love All Over Ralph Breaks the Internet. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.
And what's been going on with me, after all of our vacation travel in October, Ralph and I decided to stay put for Thanksgiving. We took in a fantastic movie, Ralph Breaks the Internet, which I'll chat about presently, and had a very nice Thanksgiving dinner, just the two of us. Then, while my Ralph was out of town visiting friends, I snuck out to Wally World and got a flocked white tree pre-strung with multicolored lights and some green ornaments, his favorite color. I reorganized our small living room to set the tree up, strung some evergreen garland and put some Christmas lights in our front windows. Very festive. When he got home, he was so surprised, and I've been enjoying having some extra light around during this dark season. Then, this past weekend, another reason why this episode is running so very, very late, we got over to Fargo to see the musical stage production of A Christmas Story at the Fargo Moorhead Community Theater. The show runs through December 22nd, and if there's still time and you can get to it, I'd encourage you to go. It's a great show, and they did an amazing job. Now, the songs weren't as good as the performances of them, but what stood out about this stage show versus the movie is while Ralphie is still the front and center through line for the entire production, Seth Lamont turned in a solid leading performance. The musical numbers brought the somewhat more peripheral, everyone a little more attention. His mom and dad, played by Shanna Franzen and Clayton Perella, were fleshed out quite a bit more than their on-screen counterparts and wove some engaging story support. Heck, even his teacher, Ms. Shields, and the mall Santa, played by Jeannie Smith Murphy and the rambunctious Sam Krauth, had a chance to shine. And it is spendy, but the FMCT is a fantastic space, and they put on one hell of a show.
Friday night feature.
A third part of why this is running so late is I got so behind in cataloging my classic collection. I didn't even pull up disc 563 until, just over a week ago. Up until then, I'd been, and you're going to be so proud of me, I got my DVR completely emptied out. This is an almost never occurrence, so I took a picture of it for posterity, along with the picture of the 200th disc in my current collection, disc X200, and I posted them to my blog. These milestones are cool and all, but I achieved them at the expense of progress on my classic collection. Then, once I got into that, I was despairing of anything that would merit a Friday night feature. There were some significant discoveries, and I will reference them as I get to that section, but nothing stood out on its own. Until I encountered the deeply foreshadowing episode of the Fires of Pompeii, the Season 4 production of David Tennant's Doctor and Catherine Tate's Donna Noble in Doctor Who on disc 575 of my classic collection. Now, I've certainly featured Doctor Who episodes in this segment before, and generally not too favorably, so I'm going to shush about how many doctors there are and what's wrong with the writing, and just bask in the introduction of what stands out about this doctor and this companion, specifically Donna Noble. This episode represents a pre-union of sorts of David Tennant and Peter Capaldi as a citizen of Pompeii. The doctor has brought Donna Noble to Pompeii the day before Volcano Day, and Donna determines that that's plenty of time for the citizenry to be warned and for everyone to get out of the way. The doctor says no, that the destruction of Pompeii is a fixed point in time, one he cannot change, seemingly unaware as he says it of how very right he is. At the time, however, his argument admittedly falls flat. The conceit of the show does suggest that this particular madman in a box could fly about in time and space, landing just ahead of natural disasters and saving people from them. Donna proposes to do exactly that, but as the doctor predicts, she is laughed off and her warning rejected out of hand. The town, as it turns out, is overrun with soothsayers, improbably accurate ones, fed, as it happens, by the pyroveals, lithiform subterranean aliens made of molten rock hiding beneath the Earth's crust. From what I was able to make out, they're transforming humans into stone by the vapors the soothsayers breathe in, and they're using that energy conversion to rebuild their lithoform spaceship. I'm getting an especially Zardoz vibe off that image. Oh, that's somewhere in this collection. I'm sure I'll get to talk about it one day. But the larger story is the Doctor's instinct to protect humanity from an alien invasion bent on taking over the world. He determines that that is their goal, that they have no intention of stopping, but Donna forces him to contrast that instinct with the certain historical fact of this city of humans being destroyed. In fact, it seems the aliens are, by their very presence, holding off the destruction of Pompeii by redirecting the force of that volcanic eruption into the humans themselves. The soothsayers do not see Vesuvius erupting because the aliens grant them access to a vision of an alternate timeline where the city is fine, right up until it's not because the aliens have turned everyone in it to stone. The Doctor steps in, destroys the alien tech, trapping them here, then really traps them here by turning them into cold dead stone. He saves humanity but dooms Pompeii. It's clearly a moral dilemma for him. You can see it playing out in his face, and Donna isn't making it any easier. Unfortunately for her, when she tries to sound the alarm, she is captured by the Sibylline Sisterhood as a rogue soothsayer and bound above one of the alien forges. This episode doesn't have a heck of a lot of story to it, so it has some time to talk about the show, bringing viewers up to speed on the universal translating function of the TARDIS. Donna looks around and asks why everything is in English. The Doctor says everything's not in English. The TARDIS is doing real-time translation for her, and in fact she's speaking Latin. She's amused to learn she's saying words in Latin, then wonders what happens if she speaks actual Latin. It turns out in those cases she is in fact speaking in Celt. Later the Doctor apologizes for her in the Sybil Faulty-esque, "You must excuse my friend, she is from Barcelona." Apart from that amusement, Donna makes an effort to connect with the people she encounters in the timelines they visit, and in this case that includes Cecilius and a soothsayer, known to us as the 12th Doctor, well, 14th. Sorry, I'll behave. Number 12, Peter Capaldi, decidedly pre his attack eyebrows, and the heavily made-up Karen Gillan, later the vibrant Amy Pond. The Doctor surmises post that regeneration that he subconsciously chose Cecilius's face as a reminder that his job is to save people. Whether he does or not, he seems a bit indifferent to the threat to people's lives by the ravenous nanobot emoji robots in Season 10's Smile. It's a good acknowledgement to include and personal assessment to undertake. Moreover, given the metacritical regeneration the Doctor undertakes by the end of Season 4, the Ood projection of the Dr. Donna, this episode teases a 2.5 Doctors preunion with Tennant, Capaldi, and Tate on screen together, and a pre-Pond Karen Gillan being evocative of greatness in the wings. Hell, the reappearance of Martha Jones in the Sontaran storyline, Georgia Moffat's presentation of the Doctor's daughter Jen, and the introduction of the irrepressible Dr. Rivers' song in Silence in the Library, and oh wow, the reunion appearances of damn near everyone ever involved in the Doctor Who reboot to battle Davros and the Daleks in the Stolen Earth and season finale Journey's End. This was quite a significant season in the life of the series reboot, and according to Wikipedia, this episode itself makes strong callbacks to 1960s era storylines from the classic series, referencing the Doctors being partially responsible for Rome burning. All in all, this episode is part of why people love David Tennant. Catherine Tate solidly nails in who Donna is. It's a solid argument for the success of the series reboot, and one of the better episodes of Doctor Who generally, which is why I was somewhat surprised it had so completely slipped my mind. Mostly I remember Donna remarking on the universal translation feature of the TARDIS, and that hilarious scene at the beginning where the Doctor left his TARDIS unattended for a moment and someone sold it. Sparse and stock as it may well have been, there was a lot to love in this episode. Well done.
Diving into the classic collection.
As I mentioned, there were some standout highlights in this collection of 13 discs that I cataloged for this installment. For one thing, I was certain that I'd recorded more episodes of the Sarah Jane Adventures, and I was right. Sci-Fi ran several of the first season episodes, and I recorded at least a few. They were produced as half-hour episodes which were aired as two-parters, that is, a resolution from the last entry followed by a cliffhanger for the next. The writing was fraught and overwrought and so geared at children. I kept several, but I was not a fan of this show. For another, I encountered several excellent installments of Terminal City, which I continued to enjoy as the production wore on, but I'll admit, as of the 8th installment, I was definitely aware of the CBC Canadian public televisionness of this show. The way even the villains of the piece were written with sympathy when, in all reality, the villains of the piece were conceptual more than anything else. Cancer, mortality, death, division, loss, and pain, rather than craven producers and the flash-in-the-pan ephemera of reality television. The show is happy to explore the progress of Katie's cancer almost in real time, long stretches of not much going on, which, hey, I'm good with evocative and atmospheric. I was a fan of AMC's Mad Men and Rubicon, for God's sakes, but this show is pleased to explore these themes at a glacial pace, so whether I ultimately recorded all of them or Sundance even aired all of them, I really could not tell you. I imagine I'll know soon enough. One candidate for the Friday night feature this time, and I'm not sure I didn't goof in foregoing it, is from an episode of Eli Stone featuring the appearance on disc 563 of the late George Michael singing Michael Bublé's Feeling Good. I was bowled over by this, coming to it as I did post a few weeks off from this project. I'd wondered, you see, I have wondered for quite a while, what it was about this show, Eli Stone, that had drawn my attention, why I was watching, much less recording for later viewing, this silly, more than appropriately broadly comedic take on, of all things, a lawyer with a brain tumor who manifests visions that lead him to solve problems via solutions no brain without a terminal malignant cancerous tumor would ever come to, as part of a high-powered San Francisco-based multinational law firm that didn't somehow immediately lock him away from public view or interaction the second this issue came to light. It's like that old Southern saying, we don't lock our crazy aunt in the attic, we put her out on the front porch for everyone to enjoy. High-powered law firms do not do this, or they do not remain high-powered law firms. Why was the best word I can come up with here is humoring the producers of this patently ridiculous show and providing it with an audience. Well, quirkiness certainly drew my attention. I'd enjoyed the practice and Boston Legal, so I was trotting along after this mess as well. But whereas David E. Kelley appeared to engage some kind of legal advisor in crafting his outrageous stories, Eli Stone used the conceit of a law firm to foist hapless weirdness upon its unsuspecting audiences week after week for 2 seasons of 13 episodes each, up to and including the firm taking on a gay monkey as a pro bono client. None of this can I defend, but I will say this. The production that went into Eli's hallucinations was impressive, and their contribution to the stories that developed were valid. Then there was the occasional appearance of pop legend George Michael. I couldn't have been quite as cool with, say, Boy George, or Dead or Alive frontman, the late Peter Giuseppe Burns, but George Michael was the right energy, and as he is no longer with us, it is meaningful to me to encounter clips of his work on this show. What kept this from being the feature, most probably, was the production decision to bring in the entire cast of the show to chime in on Feelin' Good. George Michael got the bus on the road, belting out the first verse at a dramatically significant point in the show where, post-Eli's surgery, we don't know if he's survived it yet. He's unconscious in a hospital bed, and in his head he's got George Michael singing this rich, deep, evocative song, and I'm over here with my heart going peep because, God, yes, I've got this. I've preserved this. This is good. This is real. And then suddenly I've got Victor Garber from Alias and Eli's boss taking the mic, and then it's Eli's assistant Patty Delacroix, and then his ex Taylor Weathersby. Can she even sing? And oh, why not? Just bring in some of the extras milling around and some of the crew, maybe some cameramen. Christ, you've got George Michael on set singing the song he was friggin' born to sing, and you somehow managed to screw that up. Screw you, ABC. So yeah, in reality, I probably had stars in my eyes and probably recorded season 2, but if I knew we'd have said goodbye to that beautiful voice, and particularly if I'd known what not an ending we were building to, I think I'd have just let it go. What else? Well, I had a bunch of episodes that aired on BBC America under the title MI5, a not especially riveting production about the counterterrorism activities in the UK, generally London, in a post-9/11 world, but without the gravelly gravitas of Kiefer Sutherland. Between Terminal City, MI5, Robin Hood. Oh my God, Robin Hood, such a good show. It was a season 2 episode. may come back to that one, and the Sarah Jane Adventures. I was crafting a sort of angrophilic collective, but that was interspersed with feature candidate episodes from the 4th season of Lost, wheelchair-based Weekend at Bernie's-esque episode of My Name is Earl, and very familiar roster of episodes from such shows as Desperate Housewives, Reaper, The Simpsons, Brothers and Sisters, Dexter, The 4400, The Riches, Medium, Ugly Betty, Battlestar Galactica, Grey's Anatomy, just same old. Hey, this was interesting. On discs 572 and 573, I found the anime feature movie Puppet Master installment of Ghosts in the Shell from the mid-90s, the one I'd referenced by accident in episode 23 of this podcast, where I felt like maybe I'd been watching this show for quite a few years more than I actually had been. This 83-minute anime presentation set in 2029 centered on an elite squad of counter-cyber terrorists headed by an almost entirely cybernetic being, Major Kusanagi. The show has a lot to establish in terms of technology in this still future universe. The anime series explains as it goes in easy-to-follow analogs to present-day technology, while the live-action 2017 production starring Scarlett Johansson lays in backstory alongside establishing its universe in what I'd have said was a reasonably effective approach. There was a 2008 remake of this Puppet Master production, which I'm not sure I've seen. I'm pretty sure I've only seen the 1995 production, itself based on the manga, which dates to 1989. So it was cool to find that in my classic collection, but I feel like I've probably spent as much time on the misadventures of Major Kusanagi and co. for the time being. That said, it was cool to see one element in the history of this engaging story.
Current collection.
Last time I mentioned I'd archived more than 200 discs in my current collection, though I'd not yet cataloged them. Since then, I have been able to catalog most of that material. I have a couple hours of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and Samantha Bee's Full Frontal heading into the midterms and in reaction to them that I wasn't going to spend time cataloging just now. I'll have a chance to go a little more in depth with that soon enough. I was finally able to chug down the last 7 episodes I had backlogged of Breaking Bad Season 5, and I should now have the entire series in my collection. I was so impressed with what everyone was bringing to that show, Dean Norris's Hank Schrader in particular. That guy grew so damn much over the course of this production, and he's just gotten better and better. I'd actually forgotten how Mike Armentrout's arc closed out, so it was cool to revisit that, and oh wow, from the bumbling dad in Malcolm in the Middle, who could have predicted the ice-water villainous transformation of Bryan Cranston into Walter White? Vince Gilligan is incredible. I can't wait to see what he does next. Of course, Breaking Bad alumnus Aaron Paul has thus far been underutilized in BoJack Horseman as the Kato Kalin of the piece, eternal house guest Todd Chavez in the first season episodes I've seen so far. The focus has really been on the ill-considered one-upsmanship between BoJack and Peanut Butter in the run-up to Peanut Butter and Ghostwriter Diane's wedding. There's a lot of goofy in this production between anthropomorphized animals, and the drama is built organically, if outrageously. I guess acceptably is maybe the best way of saying that. Ridiculous things happen, but they're always true to the characters involved. But when you've got Aaron Paul as Jesse Pinkman's quiet rage, eyes bugging out of my head about to explode with the insanity I've had to endure, and how is this possible? Not even last 2 years of my life. Jesus Christ, Mr. White! And the most significant thing you've had him do is a wacky subplot where he Mrs. Doubtfires his allegiance to a couple of different prison gangs. Yeah, I'd call that underutilized. I felt like Superstore has been burning through its subplots pretty quickly, though some of them have hung on a little too stubbornly. There's no way 7 episodes into the 4th season, a season that opened on the aftermath of Amy and Jonah's unwitting sex tape and Amy's enforced leave of absence, that her renewed relationship with Jonah has been a secret to anyone. Not a store that gossips as enthusiastically as this one. It was cool to explore the disparity between Glenn's healthcare plan and Amy's, and it was insane that they considered Amy as a new employee after her enforced absence. But in reality, the show does occasionally comment on lack of worker protections. You can't really call it radical. The situations they portray are realities for a lot of American workers, and they're actually better off than some. In no other way would we get Amy, hormonal and feral from lack of sleep, called into a hellish work shift the very next day after giving birth, finally confronting Glenn and demanding that he kill himself, and Glenn addressing his frazzled employee by giving her a puppy. It's like, as she's holding it, she is cycling through all of the reactions. Oh my god, this is so inappropriate. But look how cute! But what a huge responsibility! Oh, his widow tail! You did this to me! How can I keep him? Oh, how can I not? All of this, wordlessly, just with her eyes. America Ferrera is a Goram genius, and I don't care who knows it. Now, I mentioned Aaron Paul of Breaking Bad up there in my BoJack Horseman comments, and I caught an appearance by Michael McKean, lately of Breaking Bad prequel Better Call Saul, playing the now much older throughline character Doug Forsett of The Good Place. We meet this character, well, in the third season here. He is portrayed for the first time. Before this, he's mainly been a portrait on the wall in Bad Place Demon architect Michael's office, celebrated as Doug Forsett, the human being who, while high on psychotropic mushrooms in his teens, puzzled out the afterlife point system about 90% correctly, and convinced of the correctness of his, as it turns out, highly accurate hunch, proceeds to live his life in accordance with this philosophy. The 8th episode of Season 3, titled Don't Let the Good Life Pass You By, from a song playing through the show's opening moments, follows McKean as Forsett, now, as I said, much older, blissfully humming through his small, quiet, keep-to-himself life, cultivating fresh radishes from his garden, living off the grid in backwoods Canada. His seemingly unperturbed routine is interrupted when a knock at the door reveals Michael and Good Place helper android Janet,
not an android,
posing as reporters, seeking to perhaps model a meaningful philosophy based on the good hunch he came up with, and see how that's been working out for him. Well, judge for yourself. Doug's fine when it's just him. He's reduced his negative energy output to the lowest he can intuitively manage. Also, he tries to do the greatest amount of good that he possibly can, so when Raymond, an abusive neighbor kid, scoots through on his bicycle to torment him, he doesn't discourage it, and, although it causes him great personal misery, follows Raymond's directives that he throw his shoe into a pen with the feral dogs that he's trying to take care of, and which are sometimes kind of bitey. Along with trying to care for bitey feral dogs, Doug is also trying to care for every creature he encounters, including snails and bugs, but apart from just being what Michael defines as a happiness pump, someone with such little self-regard that they please others to their own detriment, Doug has sought to reduce his negative impact on the world through recycling and reusing his own waste, filtering and drinking his own urine, not cultivating much of anything beyond just propagating the radishes that were growing at his cottage when he bought it. We're not even sure if he likes radishes, and when he accidentally steps on a snail, he painstakingly memorializes the life of the snail, buries him in a small respectful ceremony, and then undertakes a 75-mile hike to Edmonton to contribute a small amount of money to a snail charity that, thinking about it, it's hard to believe isn't fake. Michael embarked on this side quest to Canada on some suspicion that the point system upon which the accounting practices of the afterlife are pinioned is flawed. In chatting with his up-till-now hero Doug Forsett about it, he realizes it is fatally flawed. Doug is so scared of ending up in the bad place that he can't enjoy his life at all. He's so worried that if he puts any negative energy into the universe at all, that could be the quantum of energy that tips him into the bad place for all eternity. So he's not even doing the good he's doing out of genuine altruism. He's doing it in fear of post-mortem spiritual accountancy. This critiques an ethical approach we as humans have struggled with endlessly since the first concept of post-mortem reckoning and assignment, based on karma, based on reincarnation, based on heaven and hell, whatever. And we get away from that question handily enough in a standoff between Michael, Eleanor, and the rest of Team Cockroach in a martial arts movie throwdown with Sean and other Bad Place operatives who punch through a back door to Earth and try to pull the humans in for punishment. But good Janet to the rescue! Darcy Carden kicks all sorts of butt through this sequence, in the end pulling the humans into her void. As this is happening, she informs them that this action ends their lives. Bing! Holy. This show cannot come back from hiatus fast enough. Well, I think an episode is actually aired by the time you're hearing this, but the sentiment stands. And if you want to catch up with the show so far, I recommend the Good Place podcast, available through Apple Podcasts. It's hosted by Mark Evan Jackson, who plays Sean, and each week features Good Place actors and crew and insights into what goes into this hilarious production week in and week out. Enjoy! In other news, thank goodness for the Christmas marathon scheduled for the season 11 episodes of Doctor Who. My DVR decided not to record one of them, episode 7, Kerblam, No Reason or Notice, and BBC America has really avoided re-airing that one even by accident. I'm confident it will come up again, however, and when it does I will pounce on it. Also, in other old business, I have both halves of my partially lost copy of Bob's Burgers episode Silence of the Louise, featuring Molly Shannon as Louise fangirl and stalker Millie. Part 1 is on disc X112, and Part 2 is now on disc 199, so that's a Frankendisc just waiting to happen. And as I mentioned up there quite a while ago by now, still with me? Well done! I took my friend Jesse's advice and followed up on ABC's A Million Little Things to the extent that I've been able to so far. ABC On Demand only had 3 episodes in the lineup, so I started viewing on episode 4. This is an emotionally driven ensemble following the lives of 6 to 8 core family, friends, and lovers, along with their extended families and friends. These mostly 30-something friends deal with loss in the wake of a friend's death by suicide, which causes a lot of fraught emotions and re-examination, which is a huge part of the draw for this show. I never met John, but I see the ripples the effects from his loss have on these people. Significantly, Romy Malco's character Rome is depressed and seeking counseling. Juliet, Maggie, therapist played by Alison Miller, has been putting him off because she's dealing with her own stuff, a cancer diagnosis she wants to keep to herself. Not content to just watch her refuse treatment and die is James Roday as Gary Mendez, and it would be a lie to tell you I wasn't watching more of this show mainly just to watch him do more things, because Sean Spencer is awesome, and he's not playing Sean Spencer, but having enjoyed Sean Spencer, what I can tell you is he definitely seems to always be playing James Roday. Even his one-on-one basketball challenge with Juliet, Maggie, is exactly the kind of scene he crafts. She's told him about her cancer, she is choosing not to fight it. Okay, we'll play for it. The stakes are that she will either get chemo and fight it, or if she wins, he can't bring it up again or tell anyone. Gary blithely dominates the game, but what he is about to learn, teetering on the edge of the game-winning point, is that Maggie slayed on the courts in college. She's been playing him all along. He has been expertly hustled up to and including the game-winning shot she makes from downtown. She wins. Her life, her decision. Suck it. Gary finds that he's too in love with her to let it go and does stupid things that make his character all the more sympathetic, but it is kind of creepy. But what this show is doing is what the movie did in The Fault in Our Stars, where two awesome people who are great for each other tragically must condense their relationship into the small amount of time they're going to have because they are terminally ill, and their terminal illness will tear them apart from each other, of course, but individually as well. And we're all sad, and we're all terminal, and if we had 100 years, we'd rarely find what these fictional people have found in the couple of months they get together. Other standouts in A Million Little Things include Grace Park and Christina Marie Moses and David Giantoli, divorce and cancer and suicide. But yeah, first and foremost, ABC, for new shows, keep the entire season on demand. I felt and still feel plunked down into these people's lives, and I needed the establishment of at least the pilot episode to get me up to speed on all this. Yeah, now, having watched 3 or 4 episodes in a row, sure, I'm committed. I'm sure I'd be all the more committed if I'd been able to watch the first 3. That's all. Yes, internet streaming is a thing, and yes, that's probably a thing I'll end up doing, but damn it, ABC, I am going to keep watching this, and it'd be nice to be able to do it on my television. And in my nerd shows... Nerd Show! I watched a rebranded series with Brian Cox called Hacking the Universe, which began its life as very Carl Sagan, very we're all made of stardust hippie vibe, have a jelly baby production called Human Universe. The opening sequence includes outrageously self-consciously multicultural presentational clips of men and mostly women looking to the stars all over the world, and all of them are now involved with, as the show has been retitled, Hacking the Universe. Hacking the Universe. I'm a Japanese woman with a spray of cherry blossom stuck in my hair and a mask of clown white I go about in every day because I'm a 19th century geisha, I guess, gazing into the heavens with my Mona Lisa smile, along with all my friends in the It's a Small World exhibition, puzzling out the eternal question questions of what is the universe and what is my place in it and where did all this stock footage come from. Commentator Brian Cox, who apparently also made an appearance in the awful Power of Three episode during Matt Smith's run of Doctor Who. But yeah, Brian Cox, the hippy-dippy commentator from the Human Universe series, repackaged on the Science Channel as Hacking the Universe. Oh, what a useful hack of our universe this series represents. Human Universe had the light, touchy-feely vibe of production that I guess some production executive at the Science Channel looked at and said, "This show is barely science, and we couldn't possibly market it. Let's call it something else, like people like hacking things, life hacks. Call it Hacking the Universe. They'll love that." Except that this show doesn't hack anything. Not surprisingly, it was never meant to. It was just supposed to be Human Universe, which was plenty good enough for its original BBC audience. In 5 episodes, it sets humanity's scientific advances in the context of the past 40,000 years of social development, which, even when you try to do that, trace it back to the savanna plains of our ancestors in Africa, the lion's share of the production is still going to focus on the middle of the 20th century, the Cold War and the space race. I mean, we can do that with anything. People have been wearing clothing since they noticed it was sometimes cold out, and some of them took the trouble to do something about that, which traces an unbroken line to Eli Whitney and the cotton gin, and today we have Dolce & Gabbana. Or millions of years ago during the Mesozoic era, dinosaurs roamed the earth, and then there was a meteor, and now there's Exxon. I'm reacting to a couple of things. Brian Cox is trying to make science seem more accessible or less sciencey somehow by talking about science and relating it to our everyday lives, but also to take those big questions and reach through the science to the philosophical, which, again, it's a valid approach for a show called Human Universe. It puts all of human history in the context of the vastness of space and time, with Brian's quiet, contemplative inquiries, 8-Man Spaceman, how humanity took on the challenges of standing upright to our launching of Apollo 11. I skimmed. They went into a little more detail than that. He talks about why we are here. Are we alone? What is our future? Which, well, you already took us from Lucy and Olduvai Gorge to Neil Armstrong, so what's another 3.2 million years? It looks like I cataloged 4 of the 5 episodes. I'm missing a space and place and time, which I'm certain would be equally fascinating from a philosophical viewpoint, but what I've been trying to convey here is that the science is relatively weak. I had no real expectations when I recorded the shows, which were originally produced in 2014. I hadn't heard of this series before. They just seemed like interesting topics, and honestly they are, but I didn't really need produced footage of our ancient ancestors looking to the stars and contemplating their place. I feel like if you want that, just aim your camera at any reasonably pedestrian-heavy space where we are all looking at our phones and getting to our next appointment. Humans have always mostly needed to keep ourselves warm, get food in our bellies, hook up for companionship, and propagate the species. In the 5 spare minutes we allow ourselves to think about the universe and our place in it, if a giant rock isn't hurtling toward us, we're good. I simplify, but the fact is most of us just do not have the time or energy to contemplate the universe and our place in it, and if we did, we're more likely to recoil in horror than beam with fulfillment. If, for a moment, we could manage to consider that other people are as important as we are, as are their love and their families, and their needs and dreams no less valid than our own, and the way we live our lives could more bless than burden, I think probably the world would improve for all of the billions of us, but there's such a brinksmanship, especially at this time of year, especially in an era of America First, highlighting a grasping, miserly spirit of loss, of less than, of zero sum, of materialism, selfishness, of mine, a spirit wherein someone else's success translates to less for me. And I understand that approach to life in this world, but it just does not take a full step back to realize that the planet we're on, in the universe we're in, has sustained our lives and an entire biome for billions of years, and if I can help you, you're in a better position to help me, and neither of us will have to work quite as hard to achieve success. This whole endgame we're hell-bent on, where one person owns everything, is just nuts. How did I get here? Well, that's the sort of question this show raises. No, it isn't anything so definitive as a hack of the universe, but it raises fair discussion. Don't watch it for science. It's just generally pleasant, light, not intellectually challenging viewing. In other nerd shows, I watched an episode of How the Universe Works that explains how the universe built my car. They went through the various components of vehicles, the carbon components, the rare earth elements involved in spark plugs even, and I had not realized this was rare, but apparently lithium, which I imagine since a star combines 4 hydrogen atoms to make 2 protons and 2 neutrons in a helium nucleus, a star could fuse a helium atom with a couple more hydrogen atoms to produce lithium, but apparently it's so reactive it becomes other things really easily, and we actually have to produce it synthetically, which, yay, we're that clever, since it seems to have more and more applications all the time. But yeah, the iron, the aluminum, the steel, something called vanadium, which apparently is produced in neutron stars. We get more of the what than the how in these shows, which, again, I guess some producer somewhere has decided how interested we viewers are and in what aspects. It was a reasonably clever application of scientific discourse to something so central to our daily lives, so well done. Now, figure out a way to explain to me how fusion works, because right now it's kind of along the lines of, well, when 2 hydrogen atoms love each other very much, they have a special hug. Even so, that was far less a waste of my attention than the 5th season installment of the Dark Matter Enigma, which, oh wow, not a syllable of actually new information in that episode. Scientists, respected scientists in their field, astronomers, astrophysicists, bending down to the camera and explaining quite the largest component of galactic matter is undetectable by telescopes, but can be perceived via the astrophysical equivalent of Brownian motion, noting the lensing of light around galaxies and the movement of dust inside them. Look, I've seen a picture of the visible universe taken by the Hubble telescope at a space exhibit at the North Dakota Heritage Center. There were billions of galaxies visible. We have thousands of very smart people doing work as astronomers and astrophysicists, analyzing that impossibly vast amount of visual data, and by all physical reality, the vast majority of the visible universe is made up of this so-called dark matter. In all of that view, you're going to have every possible combination of galactic collisions, galactic configurations. We have representations of visible light from every stage in its journey. More than that, we have scientists analyzing every wavelength along the electromagnetic spectrum. The universe is naked. We can see everything we can see. More than that, we have computers, supercomputers. We can bring all of Skynet to bear on the question of what the hell is going on up there. We have the greatest awareness right now of any we've ever had about the internal structure of our home galaxy, and for some reason, dark matter still eludes us. Not just the nature of it, the goram where of it is still a mystery. We have light energy to analyze from every direction. Note that most of what we know about dark matter is its gravitational effects on the movement of light through the universe. Well, tell you what, on its way here from whatever star produced it, light has encountered everything in its path, and the closer we look at it, the more we should be able to see. We have identified anomalies in broad enough strokes to know it's there. With millions of computers extrapolating from billions of data points, how much more must we fine-tune those observations to figure out where it is exactly and what the hell it is? Late as last year, we still can't do a little better than it's still a mystery. Don't tell me we can't eat it or screw it, so who cares? If we could understand the nature of 95% of our universe, more than 2/3 of which is inflationary dark energy and 27% that is dark matter, we'd better understand the space in which we exist, and sure, why not? For all those diehard utilitarians, what the hell, maybe we could harness it. Ramping back down a bit, in that it has a gravitational impact, that suggests it has a not zero physical presence, which, well, if someone's swinging a bat around in a room, I want to know where he is, and where it is, and where I am relative to both, so I don't get hit. That's just the truth.
What I've been watching.
In what I've been watching, Ralph and I got over to see Ralph Breaks the Internet, which was, wow, at 2 hours, kind of long for a kid's movie. It was a wonderfully creative discussion of the internet and social media interaction, and an engaging story. Princess Penelope is a little bit done with Sugar Rush. Having taken her rightful place among erasers, she's explored the 3 tracks in her game and wants new challenges. Ralph tries to help out, sneaking into her game and crafting an off-roading side quest, which goes not well and ultimately breaks her game. The arcade is going to scrap it. Oh no, maybe there's a way to fix it through that internet Wi-Fi thing that Mr. Litwack hooked up. What follows is fantastic. I got more of a presence off Taraji P. Henson in her relatively small amount of screen time in this movie than I got in seasons of Boston Legal, and her portrayal of the internet superego yes character was a shot of adrenaline, as was the perfectly cast Gal Gadot as slaughterhouse outlaw race driver Shank, who Vanellope instantly idolizes as a role model. The novelty, expansiveness, and relative freedom of the thrill-a-minute multiplayer world appeals to her, but Ralph recognizes recognizes the danger it represents to her and her glitchy code. As the clock runs down on their chance to save her game, Ralph explores the good and the bad powers of the internet as Vanellope calls on a cadre of familiar faces to flip the script and try to save her friend. And be sure to stay through the credits for a special sneak preview of Frozen 2. Loved it. Loved this movie. No, it wasn't as good as Wreck-It Ralph, but it stands perfectly well on its own, develops these characters beautifully, expands their universe logically, and provides valid commentary on both friendship and the internet. I also know right now that I will be buying this DVD specifically for the fashion show extra with casual princesses, and it will be worth it just for that. And with that, thank you so much for checking in on my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com and past episodes at Apple Podcasts. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites or through my VideoFuzzy page on Facebook, or you can follow me at TJVideoFuzzy on Twitter. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing.
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.